So, going over to, another country when you're in the middle of war to give beer is a really friendly gesture. But can it be something other than PPR, honestly? What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Movie Emporium's Apple TV Plus original movie review of The Greatest Beer Run Ever, the newest film from director Peter Farrelly. So, apparently based off a true story, which is crazy to think about, The Greatest Beer Run Ever is about a character named John Chicky Donahue, or Chicky. He, of course, is played by Zack Effon, and in this movie, this story is Chicky Donahue was he loved the drink, as, people do. He was, of course, from New Jersey. He, in the process, was very much for the Vietnam War, and his sister was very much a protester of the Vietnam War. And he decides he's going to, because he is looked down upon by his family and friends, to go over to Vietnam to give his friends beer. So what does he do? He takes a whole bunch of Pabst Blue Ribbon, or PBR. He gets in, puts it in a duffel bag, and goes to Vietnam. Well, if you think about that, that's pretty crazy, because a civilian who's not trained in war going over to Vietnam in the middle of a conflict, you can imagine he would die at some point. But somehow he survived. He got beer to all of his friends, and he made friends with a photographer who's played by Russell Crowe, of course. And somehow he came back home, and four of his friends out of like 5 or 6 of them survived. And apparently, it's all a true story. So he went over to Vietnam, gave some beer, somehow changed his opinion on the Vietnam War, and came back a whole different person. And within like 48 to 72 hours or whatever it was. So if this story is true, it's a pretty remarkable story, to be fairly honest. And there is a picture of him in Vietnam with a couple of his friends, so I guess some of it has to be true, even though, it might be embellished somehow, especially with the photographer character from Russell Crowe. But it's pretty impressive that he was able to go over to Vietnam and actually do something like this, and that makes me intrigued. I always love stories that you never hear about before that, find themselves, out there and open to the, general public. It's the same thing with Peter Farrelly's Oscar-winning film, The Green Book. And it just is a really kind of interesting thing to broach into, because you never think about somebody that stupid would go over to Vietnam and risk his life to give his buddies beer. But apparently it happened. Now the question remains: did Peter Farrelly and Zac Efron and Bill Murray's in this movie, and Russell Crowe's in this movie, some other of somewhat decent famous actors? Does it deliver? And for my honest review of this movie, I really don't think it's as bad as the Rotten Tomato critics, stuff like that, are saying it is. It's not what I would call a fantastic film. It's actually very vanilla, but it has a very entertaining tone to it. It has a very entertaining premise. It's very what I would call fantastical, even though apparently it did happen for the most part. I think the fact that Russell Crowe is in this movie is a little bit of a letdown. Not Russell Crowe himself, just what they do with him. He's not in the movie for very much, and he's on the poster, and I just don't feel like his character really does much, to be fairly honest. He's just there to kind of make Zac Efron's Chicky Donahue learn something a little bit, but it's not really to the extent of stuff that he hasn't already learned. It almost feels like they needed to pad an extra 30 minutes onto the film. So he shows up at the beginning, and then he shows up at the end. It's just you could have done without the character and still come out with the same results and stuff like that. But I get why they did it. They're trying to instill, because this guy is very much for wars, or very much for the Vietnam War, that how politicized it is, how fantasticized it is and stuff like that. It feels very much like a fever dream in a lot of respects, a fairy tale. And the war photographers and the videographers and stuff like that were really showing the dark nature, and Chicky has to learn from the hard way about this kind of stuff. It's just amazing how, if any of this is true, how he was able to coax the military into doing stuff that probably have to look back upon themselves and realize they made some terrible choices when it came to what he was able to do, because there's points in this movie where they assume he's CIA, and it's like you're almost making the officers really stupid, and maybe that's the point. I don't know, but it really feels not what I would call authentic, to be fairly honest. It really feels like they need to add some, as these movies that are based off true stories do, need to add some fantasy into the story to make it more entertaining, I guess you could say. But with that said, I do think Zac Efron is a little miscast in this movie. I think he actually gets better as the movie moves along, but his character is very much silly and over the top, and there's something off about his character that just doesn't, kind of grates on you a little bit. But when he starts realizing that the war that is being portrayed is way different than like World War II or World War One in its nutshell. There is some kind of emotion and some dimensional characterization to his character that kind of plays out. But as much as I like Zac Efron, I just didn't really feel very much here. And he is the anchor for this movie. You follow him throughout the entire film. And like I said, it feels like almost like a video game where once he gets to his friends, that's like he gets to like the 3 levels where you have to fight against the bosses and stuff like that. And then you get to the friend, he gives a beer, and the fact that he was able to carry so much beer is actually kind of funny. But once again, like Green Book, this is just a very vanilla movie. And in the end, it has some interesting moments. It has some interesting looks about like what war can entail and how it's hell. And even though it's been done a billion times before, I think it's been done better. I still think the film that is the greatest beer run ever is still enjoyable. It's still entertaining. You're not going to be offended for 2 hours and 7 minutes. I think it could have been cut down by like 30 minutes without the Russell Crowe stuff, but I think overall, I think it's just a film that has a very like a remarkable premise that apparently was true. So go in knowing that. And yeah, that's kind of where I sit with the greatest beer run ever. It's not going to be a top 10 of the year. It's not going to be a film that, I'm probably going to watch very much. But I think if you are interested or at least want to try and watch it, give it a try. You might enjoy it for, it's on Apple TV Plus. So, you can watch it there. So, but with that said, that is going to be my take on the greatest beer run ever. Thank you so much for watching. As always, in the comments below, are you interested in seeing this movie? What do you think about the idea that this actually happened, since there's a photograph about him in Vietnam and stuff like that? It's pretty crazy, but let me know in the comments if you've seen this or you're going to see it. Let me know what you think. Otherwise, if you like what you see on the channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like the video, awesome. Hit that like button, and as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.